afternoon and welcome to My Harlem Portraits, the show that aims at shedding a light on the fundamental contribution of African Americans to the building of this country and on Black excellence. To represent Black excellence, our special guest today is a writer, theater, TV and film actress, singer, dancer, and artivist. She's been nominated for the Helen Hayes and Audelco Awards, and she's currently performing in the Broadway premiere of Boop the Musical, which began performances on March 11 at the Broadhurst Theatre in Broadway. Her name is Anastacia McCLESKEY. Welcome to My Harlem Portraits.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I saw the show last week. You were absolutely amazing. I loved your character, and your voice is just
Thank you. Thank you so much.
so
Thank you.
powerful.
Thank you.
The old musical, to me, I never followed Betty Boop. I never seen any of her. Knew her, but I never
Right.
knew anything about her, right? So I was going to into something unknown,
Uh-huh.
and it was like a breath of fresh air to see that musical. It was uplifting, energizing. It's a dreamlike fantasy voyage, but it has a very powerful satirical message
Hmm.
directly to our current social political reality. So I
Yes.
really very important, magical. It's directed and choreographed by Tony Award-winning Jerry Mitchell, Kinky
Yes.
Boots,
Yes.
came from there, and starring a magnificent Jasmine Amy Rogers,
Hmm.
who is at her debut on Broadway.
Yes.
Exactly like
She's
Betty.
phenomenal. She is a phenomenal, breathtaking performance. She's a
Yeah,
star.
she's Betty Boop in person.
Hmm.
Last year, this performance, this show, received critical acclaims in the Chicago pre-Broadway run. And now here we are in Broadway. You have had an incredible career on Broadway and off Broadway. And most recently, you were Mary Church Terrell in Subs.
Yes.
What, and it was another amazing role.
Yeah.
What made you say yes to the role of Carol Evans in Boop? And tell us a little bit about the show, what it is about, and who is Carol Evans?
Yeah. So I decided to take this role on because I'm a big fan of Betty Boop.
Mhm.
And I felt like this role, this character, was in alignment with my spirit and in alignment with shows that I want to do and how I want to be represented. I always say I want to do art that heals, art that brings joy, art that incites conversation and discussion, and art that has people leaving the theater excited and activated to go out into their communities and do something positive and something good. And I feel like Boop does that. And I feel like Carol inspires people to do that. Um, Carol Evans is an activist. She's a campaign manager for the character Raymond Demarest, who's running for mayor in Boop. And she's in this story as a nurturer as well and a caretaker because she's taking care of her niece, Trisha, who is a huge fan of Betty Boop. The overall premise of the piece is that Betty Boop needs a day off. She's been making these movies for years, the cartoons that we know of, and her Grampy, makes a time machine that he traveled in years ago, but that he introduces her to. And so she gets this bright idea when he sleeps, let me travel to the future or somewhere where I can have a day off. She ends up in 2025. She meets Trisha, who's played by Angelica Hill, my niece, Dwayne, who's played by Ainsley. And they take her around New York and teach her about the modern day contemporary New York. She meets Carol. She meets Valentina, who's Grampy's old love. She meets Raymond, who's kind of this smug politician that Carol represents and takes care of. And she inspires all of them to truly tap into who they truly are and the things they might have put on the back burner, but now they need to bring to the forefront and stand in their truth, flat-footed, 10 toes down. And so that's one thing she helps Carol understand, that, hey, you're a great campaign manager, you're a great activist and nurturer, but you should be mayor of this city. You're from New York, you know this city, you love this city, run for mayor, and trust me, you'll win. And with her encouragement, I don't want to give too much away, but I feel like I did. She goes forth, she runs for mayor, and she becomes mayor of New York City. Yeah.
And one of the reasons why Betty tells Carol that she should run is that Carol is honest.
Yes. And that's something we need right now, is honest people who care about humanity.
And that's what I think was one of the really very important messages that was given. The whole show is about being your true self,
Mm-hmm.
representing who you really are,
Mm-hmm.
not being phony, not being fake,
Yep.
and and being the best person you can be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the message was loud and clear, but
Yes.
even in a very light way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I loved it. I
Yeah.
really loved the show. I had
Thank
no
you.
idea. Yes, it's beautiful. Everybody in the show is amazing.
Everyone, yes.
The cast, the, the background, the singers, the dancers, the costumes are
Yeah. Greg
phenomenal.
Barnes. Mm-hmm.
Lightning design,
Mm-hmm.
everything, going from the black and white world to the
Right.
color world. You
Uh-huh.
know, when I was reading about it, I was thinking, how are they going to do that?
Right. But a little bit of Broadway magic and some talented people on our creative team really put that together fantastically.
This is a show not to be missed. It's
Yeah.
really fantastic.
Thank you.
And congratulations for being in it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
You have played a really wide range of deeply emotional and multidimensional characters on and off Broadway, just to
Mhm.
name a very few. Caroline or Change, I saw it, was fantastic.
Thank you.
Waitress, Hair, The Book of Mormon, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, The Color Purple, The Secret Life of Bees that received the Audelco nomination. And this is just to name a few. Tell us, how do you approach creating these different roles and developing them? And what of these roles, which of these roles felt more nearer to you, particularly meaningful or particularly challenging?
Yeah. I um I take a character, and if it's a real life character, which I've played a few times, um I like to figure out who they are, who they were in their life, what they like to eat, what their favorite colors were. And then I do that for characters that are not real as well. I like to figure out, what type of music they would like to listen to, how they would speak to this person in the piece or to that person. I feel like we switch it up depending on who we're talking to in our lives. And then I figure out how they relate to me. How do I see myself in these characters? Because I do believe that 50% of a character is you and 50% is the character that you're building, even if it's a real life person, like when I was playing Mary Church Tarot. Um, and then I make out a list about this character. So I know them just as well as I know myself. In case I drop a line, in case I'm a little out of it on stage one day, I know this person so well that I can just go with the flow and be in the scene with my scene partners. Um, when a character is challenging, I would say Mary Trish Terrell was a little challenging. Playing Celie in The Color Purple was a little challenging because those were emotional characters. And then I have to decide, how far am I going to push my body? because one thing that I've learned as an artist is that we give ourselves spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally. So our cells and our body don't understand that we are just acting. So I have to tap in and then tap out. So I tap in, I tell my body, we're going on an emotional journey. This is not Anastasia's story. This is such and such a story. And then at the end, I usually pull out a journal and I journal that character out of my body. So when I go home, I don't carry with me their grief and their struggles and even their joys because they're not mine. They're the characters, and I can leave them on stage at the theater or in that journal. And I had to do that a lot with Mary because of the political climate that we were in during SUFS and just everything that she went through and that those Black women went through at that time. I felt like we were kind of in alignment a little bit too much, and still are. So I had to really release her every day when I left the theater.
So every day when you leave the theater, you go home and you write in your diary what
Mm-hmm.
the character's done that day.
Mm-hmm.
It's like exercising it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I got that from an intimacy coach because when you have intimate physical moments with another scene partner, usually you do like a tap in, tap out. So you understand we're just acting. We're not falling in love for real on stage. And then we tap out. So we understand, the body understands this is not real. Release it.
Well, all the interviews I had, this is the first time I hear this. It's
Uh-huh.
really, really interesting. This is an in-depth psychological session,
Yeah.
nude
Mm-hmm.
psychological session.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never had it explained as clear as this. And another thing that uh, I heard you said you like to understand what they eat.
Mm-hmm. I do. I
Tell me
do because
about it.
Well, because, for me in my life, food is a big part of my life. And
Mhm.
so it's kind of dictates how I move throughout the city or just wherever I am. And so I imagine if this person is on stage and even if they're monologuing about, a situation that they're in that has nothing to do with food, their stomach might rumble and they might think about apple pie and that might dictate how they say a certain line. And I find that so fascinating. As an actor because it shifts with every character. And I haven't just played humans, I've actually played characters or mythical creatures. And so then to add that into a character like that is really exciting for me.
It's fantastic. I love it. And I'm Italian, so food is very important for us.
Yes.
So that's why I got food. Okay. I need to understand that. So Broadway can be really a tough industry. And I bet during all your career, you've seen a lot of changes, which I hope are for good. We're going to talk, you're going to tell. What challenges and what satisfaction have you had along the way? And how did you tackle them? And what have you learned about yourself as a woman and about an artist and as an artist during this time?
I would say challenges would be not being trapped in a box as a Black woman in this industry. As a vocalist, I studied as an actor and a singer growing up and going to college, but you can really be put in a box,
Mhm.
and especially when you're a strong vocalist, um, and it can pigeonhole you in your career and have you stuck. And one thing that I had to overcome, I did a lot of ensemble stuff on Broadway, a lot of featured stuff. And I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to play principal roles. So I left the city. I moved away from New York in 2022, at the top of 2022. I booked a new show at the Fifth Avenue Theater called Afterwards and playing one of the leading roles. And I knew to come back to New York, I needed to build my resume up more in that way. And so that year, those 2 years, 2022, 2023, was filled with me traveling around, writing, working on my own stuff, but also playing leading roles anywhere I could. And I said I would move back to New York when New York called me back for the right role. And Suffs was that role. Mary Church Terrell and Suffs was that role. The industry has changed a lot since I came on Broadway. My first Broadway show, my first Broadway contract was the first national tour of Hairspray, which was right out of college in 2004. And I was one of the dynamites on that tour. And my first on Broadway role was Tarzan. And I was in the ensemble as a vocalist, a feature vocalist in that show. And it has changed drastically. There weren't as many, I would say, leading roles offered to Black women at the time. There were a lot of Black women working, but a lot of us weren't in leading roles. And you had the legends that I've had the privilege of meeting or talking to or working with, LaShawn, Lillias White, Audra McDonald, who have encouraged all of us in younger generations and have inspired us. And I'm so grateful for the foundations that many of them and many other Black women have laid. But now I see more Black women, more non-binary folks, more queer folks, more trans folks on Broadway, creating roles that are visible for people that are like all of us to see. It's important to have representation because it reminds you that you too can do what they are doing. Some of the politics in theater are still the same. We had a huge transformation in the Broadway industry in 2022 with We See You White American Theater, and just calling out micro and macro aggressions within the industry, which I think helped a lot, not just for Black people, but for Hispanic people, Asian people, Middle Eastern people, and people of marginalized groups. So I'm grateful for that. But politics will politic as they do. And so we constantly have to hold people to, I don't want to say the fire, but we have to hold people accountable and call things out as we go so that everyone has an opportunity to have their voice heard and their stories told.
And I believe that these changes, I see them because I write for the Harlem News.
Uh-huh.
And in the years since I moved to New York in 2005 until now, the newspaper publishes Blacks on Broadway.
Yes.
In the beginning, it was a page and a half. Now we have 4 or 5 pages filled with actors, actresses, and behind the scenes and so on Broadway. Right. And we have 2 or 3 free editions of that a year. So I see the changes in the numbers.
Right.
And also in the roles that are played.
Right.
And I think it's also a very important change for Broadway itself.
Right.
If you look, really, the big Black shows are those that are grossing the most, like MJ, Lion Kings. I mean, those classical things.
Yeah.
Be there forever.
Right.
So, you know, the great white way that
it's changing. Yeah. It's evolving.
Very beautiful. As an artist, what keeps you connected to what is happening in the world? And how does that influence the type of work that you choose to do and the characters that you choose to play? You answered a little bit before when you were telling me you left New York.
Yeah. I would say my spiritual connection, honestly. I'm very spiritual. I was raised in Nashville, Tennessee in the South, so I was raised on the pew in the church. I don't identify as religious, but I'm very spiritual. And I think that when I find work or art or artists that are connected to spirit, no matter what they call that spirit, honestly, I know that it's honest. and I know that it's going to ring true, and I know that it's going to connect. A big part of my work is to connect with the youth in my community, whether it's in schools, whether it's in community centers, and how can I help them tell their stories? And I think when I am deeply connected to spirit, whether that's ancestors, whether that's Yahweh, whatever, I find the work and I find the stories that I want to tell, and it keeps me honest and keeps me grounded. Um, I can float in the clouds sometimes. So it keeps me tethered to the work that I'm trying to do. Also, I'm really rooted. I'm an activist, so I'm really rooted in the social climate and what's happening in not just in my community, but in our country and in the world. And so if something, if it's artivism that's speaking to me in that way, I definitely want to jump in feet first, especially if it's fighting for a community that is marginalized and whose voice has been oppressed and suppressed. That's very important to me.
Which is really what the role Carol is.
Right.
That's exactly
Right.
what she is. And she really brings it on when she realizes that she is not, because Betty tells her
Mm-hmm.
that she's not putting herself in the front for some reason that is not really a reason.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm.
So, we are used to have the men and be the women behind the man, but
Mm-hmm.
finish with that.
Yep.
It's time to forget about that because we see how the world goes when these boys play like this is a game. It's not a game. This is real.
It's not a game. This is real life. Yeah. Right. She's done all the work, and when Betty reminds her of that, she's like, "You're right. Wait, what am I doing? I need
It
to
was
run
a
for."
very good moment when there was that moment that was very intense, very fantastic. I really like, and I'm an activist. I've always been all my
Yeah.
life. So this moment, especially in this country, but it has gone all over the world, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Great in charge. Um, it's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very, it's the most difficult moment in my lifetime
Yeah.
for everybody.
Same. Right.
Politics, we are on the verge of terrible things, and
Mm-hmm.
we should tiptoe instead of punching.
Right.
So,
Whew.
thank God we have beat Betty Boop now. That is 2.5 hours of just, ooh.
Yes. And we need it, we need shows like this. Everything can't be so heavy, and while Betty Boop is light, it still gives you everything you need. You get the message. And so I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful to be a part of a piece like this right now.
Yes, it's really what is needed. Now, I would like to mention your broadcast. You have, sorry, podcast,
Mm-hmm.
which is called Hello, Beautiful Spirits. Tell
Yes.
me a little bit about what it is and
Mm-hmm.
what inspired you to start it.
So Hello Beautiful Spirits started in 2020 during the brink of the pandemic. It was something I would say to myself in affirmation every morning, just to in the mirror to get out of bed and say, it's going to be okay. You matter. We were all grieving so much in that time. And then it became a way that I would greet people, my friends in the park, whether I was going to a protest, whether I was going to a meeting, just hello, beautiful spirit. And people would light up. People would just light up. And I was like, there's something in this. Then I started just getting up and saying things to myself every morning, but I would start with hello beautiful spirit, it's me Stacy, because who else would it be, and then talk to myself. And I would have these epiphanies or realizations, and I was like, somebody else needs to hear this, what I'm saying to myself. So I created an Instagram page, I got a domain name, And I was like, I'm just going to put it out there on the internet. So that's how it started. And then I did a show at 54 Below called Hello Beautiful Spirits that was kind of about the same thing, about my experience during the pandemic, but centered around songs. Some I had written, some that were songs that I just loved, and centered around affirmations and how we need to affirm ourselves and speak life over ourselves. I find that a lot of times when life becomes heavy, when we're sitting in grief, we speak death over ourselves and we don't realize it. And words are spells, so we have to be very conscious of what we say. Within that time, when I came back to New York to do subs, I said, I'm going to create a podcast. I recorded all these episodes with amazing people that had inspired me, some that I knew, some that I didn't know. And then my computer crashed and I lost all my footage.
Oh my God, that happened to me. Oh my God, it's
I
terrible.
lost everything. And so I said, well, God, am I supposed to continue this work? Am I supposed to? And I heard a voice say, even if it only reaches one person, you have to keep going. So within this year, I started back up again. I started my interviews. So Hello Beautiful Spirits will drop officially as a podcast, a full podcast on every podcast platform on May 21st of this year. And season 1 is about hearing the calling over your life and how that aligns with your purpose, and then how you function through all of that through grief, because that's where I first discovered that we are all beautiful spirits and we have a story to be told.
That is beautiful.
Thank you.
Keep me posted when you do that. We'll do
I
an
will.
interview about that because
Yes,
we need it. We need more spirituality
we
because
do.
this world is going crazy.
And I find too that no matter what you believe or how you identify, when we start to see the humanity in one another and we can connect across the aisle and say, I can take care of you, you can take care of me, I exist because you exist because I exist, we will be able to get so far in this world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But doesn't look like people are understanding it. Well, more and more people, because this protest we had last weekend, that is a clear sign that America
Yeah.
are saying no to what's going
Yeah.
on. So
Mm-hmm.
let's hope that this transform into concrete changes.
Yes.
Okay, last question because we are really out of time. Is there a dream role on Broadway or off Broadway, beyond Broadway that you haven't played and that you would like to take on?
Whew, so many of them. Um, I would love to play um, the leading role in a play on Broadway that centers around a friend circle. I feel like it's a piece that hasn't been written.
Mhm.
Um, I'm a big fan of Women of Brewster's Place. I don't know if you remember that movie, that play, but centered around it's in alignment kind of with 227 or the TV show Girlfriends, but centered around a group of women, of friends, of a diverse background, and I would love to play the lead in that. I would also love to play Nala in Lion King on Broadway for maybe 6 months, just 6 months. Um, I would love to play in many action films. I'm a huge Marvel fan. And so dream role to be in a Marvel film one day. And then one of the biggest roles of my life that I would like to play is a mother. In real life, I would love to be a mother. And I talk about that a lot because I think in our industry, people feel like you can't have it all. And I do believe that you can. So yeah.
Many amazing actresses who are mothers.
Yep.
uh, They can, I mean, it's difficult.
Right.
Easy. It's not easy. But
I'm a mother of a dog, so that's what I have right now.
well, I
My
think dogs are more difficult than kids
they
because you can't take them everywhere.
you can't, and they're babies forever.
Yeah, exactly. So, they don't grow up to be independent. They're always
Right.
from all right. Thank you so much for this beautiful, beautiful, inspiring conversation.
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that you took the time to do it. So thank you again, and thank you to our viewers. See you next Saturday, 12:30, Spectrum Channel 1993, and to see all the old episodes of My Harlem Portraits, go to my YouTube channel, My Harlem Portraits, Maria G. Cavenaghi.